Hey everyone, Chris Gio of Truth Frequency Radio. Is the 9/11 Truth Movement being taken over by the CIA, or do we just uncover some common con men? We'll find out in just a few moments. You know, here at Truth Frequency, we really are your protection from deception. And that's why it really breaks my heart and pains me when I have to bring the listeners and all of you out there this kind of information. But unfortunately, we have stumbled across what seems to be either an operation or a complete and total fraud within our midst. And it's only because the alternative media band together that we were able to expose this. Otherwise, we would have all been bamboozled and we would all wound up with egg on our face.
As we all know, we've been under a massive psyop with 9/11 evidence on many different fronts. But regardless, I had learned some new stuff in Rebecca Roth's Methodical Illusion and Methodical Deception. But most recently, there have been quite a few people that have come about that have presented what I believe to be show-stopping questions about Rebecca Roth.
It is unfortunate that Rebecca Roth, or Monica Gaynor, or whatever she chooses to call herself, whatever her real name is, has been pulling the wool over everybody's eyes. Now, for those of you that don't know the name, she gained some notoriety based on a couple of books that she released, one called Methodical Illusion and the other Methodical Deception.
One of the better investigators that I've come across, and I've watched him work through this these concerns that we've had about somebody presenting themselves as one thing in the quote-unquote 9/11 Truth Movement. But former attorney and underwear bomber whistleblower Kurt Haskell, he's an investigator, and his show is called Real Investigations, and you're about to find out why, because he's conducted a real investigation that partially included some of the information I was able to glean from my conversations I've had with Rebecca Roth.
People were calling it groundbreaking work. Others were calling it a complete and total fraud, just like Jim Fetzer was pointing out.
Because Dennis spoke with Rebecca Roth for 2 or 3 hours about technical aspects of her claims, pointing out to her that she was simply mistaken about them. Dennis can elaborate. She claims, for example, and she's also reiterated this in the interviews she's given, check out the Sargent report, for example, which she did with Pete Santilli. And she's claiming that when the transponders were shut off, that the plane was no longer visible on radar. That is simply false. Transponder sends out an identifying signal, but radar is radio waves bouncing off an object in space.
And I wanted to say, point blank right here, this is not about bashing Rebecca Roth or to demean her or put her in a position where she feels like there's any kind of an attack. It's not what this is all about. This is about the fact that at least some of the information that we discussed from the viewpoint of simple utility of an aircraft, for instance, doesn't quite...
Once I interviewed her, my spidey senses really went off, because I can't really get to know a person until I've interviewed them. And she rubbed me like sandpaper. So over the course of the next several months, and I never had her on the show again, but over the course of the next several months, I kept an eye on her. And I noticed that she would start to get more and more bigoted, very anti-gay, very anti-Jew, and mixing that with the 9/11 research, almost as if to get the good 9/11 research kind of stinky. And so that raised a little bit of suspicion, but everybody has their own views, and so that really wasn't anything, because it was kind of right on the edge, and so it didn't really cross the line into complete and total bigotry. But there was one time when she said the word fag on air and referred to homosexuals as fags, which I thought was a little bit overboard. So at that point, consequently, I was speaking to Max Egan, and he was telling me about a guy named David Cole. Now, this is what really did it for me, because David Cole had a terabyte of information on 9/11 that was stolen from him. And this was Freedom of Information Act requests and all kinds of inside information. Now, when Rebecca's second book came out, she was boasting about how she has a terabyte of information. That led me to really start looking into who this Rebecca Roth person is, and I came across a YouTube channel called Fix Your Health, P-H-I-X, Fix Your Health, that starred Monica Gaynor.
Well, hello, Monica. You're looking great today.
Oh, hey, thanks, Michael.
Well,
How
you
are
look great every day, but it kind of reminds me of the time we were cruising through Las Vegas, stopped in at the Excalibur, and some guy wanted to guess your age.
Yeah, that was kind of fun, wasn't it?
Yeah, for $1 or so, we put you up on a podium, and he guessed 20 years younger than you really are. And you walked out with a teddy bear.
I had to show him ID that he was that far wrong, didn't I?
Now, how do you explain that?
Well, I've got a little secret. Actually, got a couple of secrets, but
Care to share them with us?
my main beauty secret is that I use an essential oil blend called Immortelle from doTERRA.
Ooh, I know about that.
Yeah, it's awesome. And, when I first started using Immortelle, I remember that I was probably 7 to 10 days of using it twice a day, that I walked into the living room and you went, whoa, your skin looks great. And then you got up and you started inspecting around my eyes and said, there are no wrinkles at all visible around your eyes. So you were like right in my face.
Now let me just interject here. Monica is old enough to have wrinkles. It's not like she's 20.
Yes, that's very true. So I know, it's amazing, isn't it?
It
But
is pretty
the another kind of a cool thing that happened. I unfortunately had just gotten new contacts and glasses at the time I started using Immortelle, and about 2 to 3 months of using it twice a day, I noticed that I couldn't see correctly from either my glasses or my contact lenses. And
Monica Gaynor is a character that Rebecca Roth plays. And Rebecca Roth will even admit that Rebecca Roth isn't her real name, and her story is that she's using the stage name Rebecca Roth to protect herself and protect her family, which sounds reasonable until you see the Monica Gaynor persona, which is trying to sell a bunch of snake oil, and it's a multi-level marketing pyramid scheme.
this is Monica and Michael from doTERRA's Fix Your Health team. Today we're going to talk about doTERRA's Loyalty Rewards Program, and we're going to take it in depth. So for those of you who have questions, we hope to be able to answer all of those questions for you today.
Now, it gets weird because people like Jim Fetzer have been pointing out that there's no record of Rebecca Roth ever working as an airline stewardess. And once I came across the Monica Gaynor information, I went to Jim and I said, hey, I know you've been pointing out a lot of these anomalies. I'm wondering if Rebecca Roth is just the character that this Monica Gaynor person is playing. And I gave him the Monica Gaynor information. He checked it out thoroughly and he posted an article about it on November 5th. Now, the article also included some other information that I didn't know. For instance, her IP address that was seen when she was on a Skype call with Jim actually led back to Langley, Virginia. And when confronted about this, she said, well, I'm using a proxy server. Who is using a proxy server that goes back to Langley, Virginia, which is the CIA headquarters? Her phone number goes back to Langley, Virginia. So there's 3 different reasons why all roads lead back to Langley, Virginia, which has people speculating now. Who is this Rebecca Roth person? So I started pondering on how I'm going to remove Rebecca Roth from Truth Frequency, because I don't want to be tied to any of that whatsoever. So at that particular time, I got really lucky and the trash took itself out. Rebecca wrote me an email and said, hey, I'm leaving the station. And I said, good riddance, don't let the door hit you, on the way out. And I was rejoicing when this happened. She went to go become somebody else's problem. Well, she became Pete Santilli's problem, and she became Kurt Haskell's problem. Kurt Haskell is a former U.S. attorney, and as he's pointed out in the interview he recently did with Pete Santilli, if somebody asks him about his job history, he can say, hey, here's a documentation, or here's this, or here's that. But Rebecca couldn't even provide a photograph of her in a stewardess outfit. And so they started probing her, and she started giving them the same responses. My basement flooded, the dog ate my homework, all these generic responses. And Kurt Haskell decided to do some investigation and went way deeper than Fetzer or myself have gone into.
So here's what I found. You know, she says her flight attendant career started in 72, right? I don't think that's in dispute.
Right.
So I looked and found her birth records. Well, her birth records happen to be such that I know her exact birthday. I'm not going to state it on there. But in 1972, she was 15 years old. So by her own admissions, I read a post on her Facebook page about a week ago that said flight attendants could not work in the 1970s until 21 years old. The laws regarding serving alcohol. So it's impossible, according to her own admissions, that she worked as a flight attendant in 72. She could not have worked as a flight attendant until very late 77, when she would have been 21. So that part of her story is not true. She was not a flight attendant in 72, because it's not possible. Now, I also found records of her attending college in the mid-1970s, which I would think it would be tough to attend college and be a flight attendant. I know, because you're always traveling overnight, what have you. But why would you want to go to college anyway? I mean, back then, a flight attendant job was a very good job. And why would you want to go to college to do something different? And she was flight attendant 30 years, supposedly. So why was she in college in the mid-70s? Doesn't make a lot of sense. So that part of her story is not truthful. So, and I know her real name. I'm not going to say it on air, but it's not Rebecca Roth. She's also not Monica Gaynor, although she was the voice in those videos. I'm not going to destroy her privacy.
Sure.
At least at this point.
That's respectable.
If she makes some unwarranted attacks on me personally, saying I'm lying or something, then the gloves are off. But at this point, I'm not out to destroy her privacy. I'm not. Or I had another colleague of mine confront her and actually tell her real name to see how she would respond. And she responded with 10 seconds of complete silence. She was utterly shocked that anyone was able to figure out her real name.
Oh, really?
Because there are, get this, there are literally 0 pictures of her on the internet that I could find. 0. And trust me, I know a lot of her family members. I probably know 20 to 30 of her family members. I could not find even an old picture of her on anywhere related to these family members or anything. Facebook, anywhere. It's all been scrubbed clean, completely. I was able to get one photo of her from the mid-1970s, and it did not come off the internet. It's almost unbelievable, because I know I could not do that with myself. There would be, pictures of dinner parties I went to in 1985 and things like this, that I wouldn't even know are out there, that I would not be able to scrub clean. Anyway, so I started looking into her work history, because now I knew she was not a flight attendant in 1972, because she was only 15 then. So was she a flight attendant at all? Came up in my mind. And I pulled her work history, and it had a list of 12 jobs. Okay, fine. And I'm not going to name the specific employers, but none of them were in the airline industry. And these are the kinds of places she worked for. One was a hospital, one was a newspaper, a church, and one was a university. And there were 8 others. But this gives you kind of idea. Menial, sporadic jobs is kind of what I got from her work history. No airline history at all. Now, I decided to do another search. And on this one, I did a search of where she lived. Okay, I have her address. So I wanted to see who lived there, if there were any other suspicious people there. And this site provided me with her current. Okay, and the current employer or occupation is Protective Service Occupations. And it also says she has a graduate or professional degree, which I find very, very hard to swallow for someone that supposedly was a flight attendant for 30 years when they would find the time to have a graduate or professional degree. But even more troubling, Pete, is the professional service occupation designation.
Protective. Protective service occupation.
Yes, those people are almost entirely, or maybe 100%,
right,
government workers.
Yeah, if not a term that is frequently used in federal circles, because protective services and the federal protective services, that's a very, very common term.
I'm just really glad that we were able to distance ourselves from her early on, and that we as the alternative media band together to expose this rather than being sucked into it. Now we have to think about the flip side of the coin. The flip side of the coin is that this is an operation. And if this is an operation, then we have to be aware of it. Because what happens now that Rebecca Roth, Monica Gaynor, has been exposed as a fraud is everything within her book, her fictional book, is now effectively discredited because Rebecca Roth, Monica Gaynor, has been exposed and discredited. We're all about the truth here at Truth Frequency Radio, so we have to report on what is truthful. But we also have to be aware that not to throw the baby out with the bathwater, because that could have been the whole agenda. I personally believe that she was supposed to be exposed, and the operation has been playing out exactly the way that it was supposed to. Now, she started attacking us a couple of months ago out of the blue and just started making up that we were saying this about her and saying that about her. And I sent her a very professional email. And I said, Rebecca, and I didn't even address her as Monica. I said, Rebecca, you've been telling your people that we've been replying to hundreds of emails saying this and that about you. Well, here's the screenshots of the replies that we sent out. There was only about 4 or 5 emails that we received asking about your show. You really weren't in that high demand. But here's the truth. We're clearing it all up with you right now. Here is the Skype message where I asked you to not be bigoted on air. And here's the audio clip that shows that you said the word fag on air and you addressed the entire homosexual listening audience as fags. So we would really appreciate just to leave us alone and stop slandering us. If she was really seeking the truth, she would have taken a step back and she would have said, okay, you know what, I apologize, or not even apologize, just dropped it right there. But instead, she persisted with the hoax. She persisted with the fraud to try to preemptively discredit us, because I suppose that she knew that we were on to her and on to the fact that she was a complete and total fraud. So for me personally, that was personal confirmation to myself that she's not really in it for truth. So that's why I tend to really give credence to Kurt Haskell and all of the new information that's coming out there. And I would say 99.99999% certain that we are dealing with a hoaxer or a CIA operative, and it's really sad. But I can give you my personal experience is that she is not looking for truth. As a matter of fact, a recent post that she made about Pete Santilli, who was arrested for open carrying, even though he was released immediately, she called him a gun nut, which just kind of shows that she's not really in it for the truth. The truth is Second Amendment. We all have gun rights. Gun rights are a fundamental aspect of being an American. It's the foundation of living in this country, and the foundation of truth and everything that we're fighting for: gun rights, the freedom of speech, etc., etc. So you don't call somebody exercising their rights lawfully a gun nut. That's agenda-based. That's not truth-based. It's the exact same way you don't call an entire group of homosexuals fags because you don't agree with their particular life choice or whatever. It's about freedom, you see? And everybody has the freedom to marry whoever they want. Everybody has the freedom to have a gun. But if you're claiming to be about truth and you're claiming to be about the Constitution, but you don't respect other people's freedoms, then what's the agenda behind all of this? You've got to ask yourself that. So this brings to mind a recent situation because we seem to get hit on two different levels here. The 9/11 truth movement got hit, and then there was a video of Stanley Kubrick supposedly admitting to filming the fake moon landing. But in actuality, it was an actor, and it was a scene cut from a mockumentary called Shooting Kubrick, where it's openly admitted that that's an actor. And we expose this because, again, we're about the truth. We're not about confirmation bias. So we put this video out, and now the talking point is, oh, the moon landing was real. The Stanley Kubrick film has already been debunked. You know, it's false. Go look at Snopes. Snopes has an article that says Kubrick filmed the moon landing. False. The Kubrick interview was proven to be a hoax. Is that the same thing that's being set up now with this Rebecca Roth? Is that why she put the methodical illusion and methodical delusion, or methodical deception, in her methodical delusion? And I've got to say, the choice of words was perfect, because this was definitely methodical, it was definitely an illusion, and it was definitely a deception. And it breaks my heart that we have to deal with this. But it means that we're really making a difference, and we're really raising the frequency and raising the consciousness of mankind out there. And so they're going to start attacking, and they have been attacking, but I haven't seen them attacking so heavily at once and up until the end of 2015. So it makes me wonder what's coming up. Are we really pushing the envelope that much? And if so, we got to brace ourselves and we got to prepare. And the most important thing right now is unity. It doesn't matter what you believe. It doesn't matter, if your truth is different from somebody else's truth. We have to band together, because we're going to continue to get these ops and these frauds and these con men and these CIA agents coming in and trying to discredit all of the hard work we've done. And if we're bickering about whether there were planes or no planes, if we're bickering about the moon landing, if we're bickering about the shape of the earth or any of that, well, then we're just going to fall right into their methodical deceptions and methodical illusions. And we can't lose sight. Always remember, the number one thing is we each have our own puzzle piece. And just because that person's puzzle piece doesn't necessarily match yours, it doesn't mean we can't put them together and paint the entire picture. But they want to prevent us from doing that. And that's why we have the Rebecca Roths and Monica Gaynors and all of these shady people coming in to try to discredit the truth. We're not going to let that happen. As long as Truth Frequency is here, we will be your protection from deception. We love you, and we'll see you at truthfrequencyradio.com.